Football is a game of dreams. The ones we celebrate most are the players who fulfilled them, the icons who turned raw potential into greatness, who not only had talent but maximized it across years of consistency, trophies, and unforgettable moments. These are the legends who defied eras. But there's also another side to the game, a shadow that runs parallel to greatness. It's the story of the players who had all the gifts, outrageous skill, natural ability, the kind of talent you can't teach, yet never truly reached the heights that seemed destined for them. Players who gave us glimpses of genius that could take your breath away, but only in fleeting moments. Their careers were not chapters of dominance, but scattered pages of brilliance, leaving behind more questions than answers. This is the foundation of what I call the wasted talent theorem. It suggests that in every generation of football, there will always be players whose ability outstrips their achievements. Not because they lack skill, but because consistency, mentality, or circumstance stood in their way. They became cult heroes, YouTube sensations, or subjects of endless debates. Not legends of the game, but legends of what might have been. A while ago, I gave you, my beloved subscribers, the power to vote for who you would like me to make a video on. And it so happened, to my surprise, to be Hatem Ben Arfa being victorious. A player with great potential, but never really showed that potential near enough every game he played. And that's what makes him so fascinating. Because while greatness is measured in trophies, wasted talent is measured in moments. Moments so good they keep us dreaming of the career that never was. If the wasted talent theorem needed a face, it would probably be Hatem Ben Arfa's. In many ways, he is the ultimate example of the player who had everything. Pace, technique, balance, dribbling that can make defenders look like training cones, but never managed to turn that outrageous natural gift into a consistently great career. Ben Arfa is football's what if personified. His story begins in the suburbs of Paris, where his dazzling skills earned him a place at the famed Clairefontaine Academy, alongside the likes of Karim Benzema. At Lyon, his breakthrough came early. He won 4 Ligue 1 titles between 2004 and 2008. But even then, his reputation was complicated. He was considered a prodigy, but also difficult to manage. Training ground bust-ups, clashes with teammates, and accusations of selfishness followed him even in his teenage years. In 2008, he moved to Marseille, hoping to take the next step. Instead, the same patterns repeated. A refusal to come on as a substitute in 2009 became a headline scandal. He missed training when trying to force a transfer. His undeniable ability, the ability to glide past opponents and score goals out of nothing, was often overshadowed by disagreements with his coaches, including Didier Deschamps. When he arrived at Newcastle United in 2010, fans thought the Premier League would finally see his genius explode on the biggest stage. At first, it seemed possible. Goals like his solo run against Bolton in 2012 remain iconic, the sort of magic only a handful of players in the world could produce. But again, inconsistency and poor relationships with managers defined his time in England. Alan Pardew regularly criticised his lack of discipline and fitness. By 2014, he was frozen out of the squad and eventually loaned to Hull City. That loan ended in typical Ben Arfa fashion, with controversy. After falling out with Steve Bruce, he publicly declared he would never play for the manager again. He left the club mid-season and returned to France. His time in England ended in bitterness. Then came a brief renaissance. At Nice in 2015-16, Ben Arfa reminded everyone why he was once labelled a future superstar. He scored 17 goals in a season filled with outrageous solo efforts and moments of pure artistry. That form earned him a dream move to Paris Saint-Germain. But even there, history repeated itself. After just one season, he fell out with coach Unai Emery and was frozen out entirely. For over a year, one of France's most talented players was not allowed to play a single minute for the first team. He later sued PSG for damages, though unsuccessfully. The later years of his career followed a familiar script. Rennes, Valladolid, Lille, Bordeaux, flashes of brilliance, but always marred by disputes. At Bordeaux in 2022, he was suspended after a dressing room row with his manager and teammates. Another reminder of how his own attitude often held him back. So why is Ben Arfa the poster boy of the wasted talent theorem? Because he embodies its essence. He had everything needed to be one of the greats: skill, flair, unpredictability. But what he lacked was just as crucial: consistency, professionalism, and the mentality to grind out greatness. Instead of a career defined by trophies and longevity, his legacy is defined by moments. Unforgettable goals, viral compilations, and a constant reminder of what could have been. The wasted talent theorem is built on players like him. Players who had the ability to change football, but not the discipline to conquer it. Hatem Ben Arfa will always be remembered, not as one of the greats, but as one of the biggest what-ifs the game has ever seen. If Hatem Ben Arfa is the poster boy of wasted talent, then Adel Taarabt is its cult hero. A player who could dribble through half a team, bend a pass through the eye of a needle, or smash a 30-yard strike into the top corner. And yet, whose career never truly matched the talent that poured out of him. For one fleeting moment at Queen's Park Rangers though, it felt like the Premier League had a new magician. Born in Morocco and raised in France, Taarabt was spotted young and moved to Tottenham in 2007, where he was immediately hyped as a wonder kid. He had incredible close control, flair that bordered on arrogance, and the ability to make defenders look silly. But at Spurs, under managers like Martin Jol and later Harry Redknapp, his rawness and lack of discipline quickly became issues. Redknapp famously described him as someone who could be brilliant or useless, depending on the day. It wasn't until his loan move and later permanent transfer to Queen's Park Rangers that Taarabt finally found the stage he needed. Under Neil Warnock in the 2010-11 championship season, he was given the freedom to express himself completely. The result? One of the most outrageous individual seasons English football has ever seen. Taarabt scored 19 goals, provided 16 assists, and was unplayable on his day. His dribbling, vision, and swagger carried QPR to the Premier League almost single-handedly, earning him the Championship Player of the Year award. Warnock called him the best player in the league by a mile, and QPR fans adored him. For a while, Loftus Road was the home of a Moroccan maverick who seemed destined for bigger things. But when QPR returned to the Premier League, the flaws in Taarabt's game became harder to ignore. He struggled with fitness, often arriving back from international duty overweight or unmotivated. He clashed with managers, frustrated teammates, and became a liability as often as he was a match winner. One game, he could produce a moment of genius. The next, he could disappear entirely. The consistency required at the top level simply wasn't there. His time at QPR descended into a cycle of brilliance, followed by disappointment. There were moments, a thunderbolt against Fulham, mazy runs that defied belief, but not enough to keep QPR competitive. Eventually, he fell out with the club, with stories emerging of him refusing to train properly and being labelled overweight by Redknapp. A move to AC Milan in 2014 briefly reignited the hype. On loan from QPR, Theorem impressed with flashes of his old self, scoring goals and dazzling with his dribbling. But once again, the spark didn't last. The permanent moves that followed, including to Benfica, never delivered the same excitement. In Portugal, he eventually transitioned into a deeper midfield role, far from the free-flowing number 10 he once was. Almost symbolic of a career that had burned bright but faded too soon. Theorem's story is the perfect example of the wasted talent theorem. He had the ability to become a household name, a Premier League star, maybe even more. Instead, his career is remembered through highlight reels and nostalgic conversations among fans who saw him at his best. At QPR, for that one glorious season, he was unstoppable. But outside of that bubble, inconsistency, attitude, and professionalism stopped him from ever becoming the player his talent promised. Theorem wasn't just a footballer, he was a showman, an entertainer, and in the end, he will be remembered not for trophies or legacy, but for those unforgettable flashes that remind us why wasted talent fascinates us so much. When it comes to wasted talent in football, few names divide opinion like Mario Balotelli. Because unlike some players in this theorem, Balotelli did achieve things. He won silverware at Inter, Manchester City and AC Milan. He played more than 30 times for Italy, leading the line at major tournaments. He scored in a Champions League semi-final, provided the assist for one of the most famous goals in Premier League history, and lit up Euro 2012 with one of the most iconic performances of the decade. On paper, that's a successful career. And yet, when we talk about Balotelli, there's a sense of unfinished business, of talent that never fully translated into greatness. Because for all the medals and memories, there is also chaos. Fireworks in his bathroom, training ground bust-ups, countless tabloid stories, and the constant sense that here was a man who had been given an opportunity millions can only dream of, but didn't seem to care. Balotelli was born in Palmero in 1990 to Ghanaian immigrants, but adopted at a young age by an Italian family. His raw ability was spotted early, and by 15 he was already making headlines at Lumizzane. Inter Milan swooped in, and under Roberto Mancini, Balotelli became one of Europe's brightest young strikers. His pace, power, and eye for goal made him a nightmare for defenders. He became the youngest Inter player ever to score in the Champions League, and by 2010, he had 3 Serie A titles to his name. But even in those early days, his temper and attitude were problems. At Inter, Jose Mourinho described him as unmanageable. Stories of him skipping training, clashing with teammates, and sulking when left out of the team became regular. The infamous moment came in 2010, when he threw his Inter shirt on the ground at full time in disgust in a Champions League final, an act seen as disrespectful and petulant. When Mancini moved to Manchester City, he brought Balotelli with him, convinced he could get the best out of him. And for a while, it worked. Balotelli had moments of brilliance in England. He scored 20 goals in the 2011-12 season, including 2 in that legendary 6-1 win over Manchester United at Old Trafford. His cheeky undershirt celebration, "Why always me?" became an instant classic. And on the final day of that season, he played a decisive role. It was Balotelli's assist that set up Aguero's famous title-winning strike. But alongside the headlights were the antics. Balotelli once set off fireworks in his bathroom, leading to a fire at his house. He was stopped by police with £5,000 in cash on the passenger seat of his car. When asked why, he reportedly replied, "Because I'm rich." He had training ground bust-ups, late-night escapades, and a reputation for attracting trouble. Mancini, once his greatest ally, eventually admitted even he couldn't control him. His move to AC Milan in 2013 reignited his career briefly. Balotelli scored stunning goals, carried Milan at times, and reminded fans of the player he could be. But again, inconsistency and disciplinary issues crept in. Then came the move that perhaps defines his wasted potential most. Liverpool, 2014. Signed to replace Luis Suarez, Balotelli was seen as a gamble, a talented forward who could either explode or implode. Unfortunately, it was the latter. He scored just one league goal, never looked interested, and clashed with Brendan Rodgers. For a player who should have been entering his prime, it was a disaster. From there, his career became a nomadic journey. Back to Milan, then to Nice, Marseille, Brescia, Monza, and clubs in Turkey and Switzerland. Occasionally, he would produce a brilliant moment, a wonder strike, a piece of skill, but then they became fewer and further between. But that was Balotelli's curse. For all the gifts, the strength, the flair, the finishing, there was never the discipline, the focus, or perhaps even the desire to match it. He had the career millions would envy, but he never turned his extraordinary potential into true greatness. That is why Mario Balotelli is such a fitting figure into this theorem. Unlike others, his career isn't empty of success. He did win trophies, he did score in big games, he did play for his country, but there will always be the feeling that he could have been so much more. That if he had cared just a little bit more, worked just a little bit harder, stayed just a little more disciplined, his name might sit alongside the true legends of his generation. Instead, Balotelli leaves behind a legacy of contradictions, a player of genius, a magnet for chaos, a story of what might have been. Football needs its icons of wasted talent, and Balotelli might just be its most entertaining of all. For me, personally, I'm not angry at Balotelli's career. I'm just disappointed. If football had a Hall of Fame for flair, Ricardo Quaresma would be a permanent exhibit. A master of the trivela, the rabona, and dazzling dribbles, Quaresma was a magician on the wing. His talent was undeniable, yet his career trajectory often left fans wondering, what if? Born in Lisbon in 1983, Quaresma emerged from Sporting CP's esteemed academy, a product of the same system that nurtured Cristiano Ronaldo. In 2001, at just 17, he debuted for Sporting's first team, showcasing his flair and potential. His performances caught the eye of Barcelona, leading to a €6 million transfer fee in 2003. However, his time at Barca was short-lived. After a season marked by limited appearances and a strained relationship with manager Frank Rijkaard, Quaresma returned to Portugal, joining Porto in 2004. At Porto, Quaresma flourished. He won multiple domestic titles and was instrumental in their 2004 UEFA Intercontinental Cup victory. His ability to deliver match-winning performances earned him the Portuguese Footballer of the Year award in 2006. Despite these successes, his career was categorized by inconsistency and a lack of sustained excellence. Quaresma's subsequent moves to clubs like Inter Milan, Chelsea, and Besiktas were marked by flashes of brilliance, but never the sustained impact expected of a player of his caliber. His time at Inter Milan, for instance, was marred by disciplinary issues and a failure to adapt to Serie A's tactical demands. Similarly, his brief stint at Chelsea ended without leaving a significant mark. Internationally, Quaresma represented Portugal in 3 UEFA European Championships and the 2018 FIFA World Cup. he played a pivotal role in Portugal's Euro 2016 triumph, scoring a crucial goal against Iran in the group stage. Despite these contributions, he often played a supporting role to other stars like Ronaldo. In his later years, Quaresma returned to Portugal, and later played for Vitória Guimarães, continuing to demonstrate his skill, but without the same impact as in his prime. His career, while decorated with titles and individual accolades, often felt like a series of missed opportunities. Ricardo Quaresma's story is one of immense talent, tempered by inconsistency and a lack of discipline. He had the potential to be one of the great wingers of his era, but never fully realised it. His career serves as a poignant reminder of the fine line between brilliance and underachievement in the world of football. At the end of the day, the wasted talent theorem isn't just about unfulfilled potential. It's about the delicate balance between ability, opportunity, and mentality. Across football history, there are countless players who possessed extraordinary skill, moments of genius so compelling that they could single-handedly win matches, lift trophies, and dazzle fans. Hatem Ben Arfa, Adel Taarabt, Mario Balotelli, and Ricardo Quaresma all exemplify this principle. Each, in their own way, left the pitch with moments of brilliance, moments they were recognised with accolades, team successes, and personal awards. And yet, for all their achievements, there remains a persistent sense of what could have been. What sets these players apart and places them firmly in the wasted talent theorem is a recurring theme: arrogance, attitude, or an inability to align their immersive natural gifts with the discipline required for sustained greatness. Ben Arfa dazzled but clashed with nearly every manager he played for. Taarabt mesmerised in bursts, yet his inconsistency and struggles with professionalism limited his impact. Balotelli won trophies and represented his country with distinction, but his off-field antics and disregard for expectations prevented him from becoming a true global icon. Quaresma's flair and technical wizardry were undeniable, yet his inconsistency and disciplinary challenges stopped him from fully capitalizing on his gifts. Beyond these four, the theorem can be understood through broader archetypes of wasted talent in football. The injury curse. Players whose potential is curtailed by recurring injuries, like Jack Wilshere, Alexandre Pato, and Ganzo. The lifestyle collapse. Prodigies undone by your field choices, including Dele Alli, Adriano, and Antonio Cassano. The mentality question. Brilliant talents whose attitude or focus fails under pressure, such as Ravel Morrison, Royston Drenthe, and Anderson. And the overhyped prodigy. Youngsters burdened by early expectations, like Bojan, Jesse Rodriguez, and Robinho. All four of these archetypes highlight the fragile combination of talent and mindset. A player can be technically perfect, physically gifted, and creatively unmatched, but without the right approach, discipline, and mental resilience, brilliance becomes fleeting. In the end, the wasted talent theorem is not a condemnation of these players. It is a recognition of football's unpredictability. It is a reminder that for every legend who reaches the summit, there are countless others who leave us breathless with a single moment of genius, before fading back into what might have been. And perhaps that is why we watch football. Not just to see greatness realised, but to glimpse it, however briefly, in those fleeting flashes of pure, wasted talent.